If you're not using DeepSeek already, you're missing out on the AI revolution. This is the most powerful new AI from China, and this presentation guide from Tsinghua University in Beijing is going viral on Chinese social media. So I'm going to break it down and give you an abridged version of some of the highlights, so you can start your DeepSeek journey to AI mastery. This presentation has been truncated and is showing the key questions: what is AI, how does it work, what can I achieve with it, and how do I become a master? The original presentations from Tsinghua's Metaverse Culture Lab are very, very advanced. There are a lot of academic concepts, but if we start at the basics, let's look at DeepSeek and AI. What is DeepSeek? What can it do? Text generation, natural language understanding abilities, programming and code tasks, and how to use DeepSeek. We're going to start from absolute beginner and go all the way up to high-level innovative mastery. I've got a couple complete beginners here with me who I'm going to be sharing this with, a couple of friends who can watch along and ask questions. And the first thing I'll begin with, what is DeepSeek? DeepSeek is artificial intelligence, but it is developed in China. So it's Chinese artificial intelligence that you can access internationally for free. It is as powerful and sometimes even more powerful than OpenAI's ChatGPT, available free and open source. And with this sort of power, it will unlock amazing capabilities for you. What can it do? Well, if you're familiar with other AI models like OpenAI's ChatGPT, you may already know some of the possibilities for text generation, text analysis, programming, code, software debugging. One thing it cannot do is it does not process images and image generation. If you have an image, it can extract the text from the image, but you're not going to be using this to create visuals and videos. It is all about text at this point. And when it comes to text generation, you can use it to generate text for your presentations, your stories, poems. There are a lot of creative applications, and you can also use it to take complex documents, give it a lot of information, have it summarize it, take the key points, and maybe rewrite it in a different style. It's very, very useful for that. When I was preparing this presentation, I was able to take over the 100-page user guide that Tsinghua University published, upload the document as a PDF. DeepSeek would then, within seconds, analyze it and be able to summarize it and reorder it. Even this presentation, when I asked it to come up with 35 slides, it was able to highlight key slides that I could then pick and choose from as I create this high-level summary. It also does structured generation. So as you are giving it information and text, you can also structure how it outputs it in a specified format within your parameters. Some things you should know about how artificial intelligence handles natural language processing. There are several key skills that the AI has to work with. Semantic analysis means that there's a lot of nuance in communication. If you had an artificial intelligence that was handling customer support and someone said, "I am so done with this project," there's actually a tone there, there's some sarcasm, and it would be inappropriate for the AI to respond, "Congratulations on completing it." So it's important for semantic analysis to have, to understand the nuances of communication. That's, homophone, sarcasm. And because this is an artificial intelligence from China, one thing I can point out as a learner of the Chinese language, Chinese is far more nuanced than American English is. American English is a very low context communication culture. Chinese is a very high context communication culture where there's a lot more reading between the lines. So based on that, I can say that a Chinese developed AI is going to have more capabilities for understanding nuance and communication than an American-developed AI. Knowledge, reasoning. When you have a lot of data, the AI needs to be able to take this data and figure out connections and analyze the knowledge. And then another natural language skill is text classification, to be able to take text and then figure out, what is spam, what is a news article, and to classify different types of writing. Another thing that DeepSeek can be great for is programming. DeepSeek has exceptional reasoning capabilities, so that forms a very good logic structure, which is perfect for programming. Use it for writing code, debugging code, technical documentation. These are some things that many software developers around the world have begun to rely on AI for, and DeepSeek also delivers these capabilities. So how do you use it? Go to chat.deepseek.com. There's a website. You may need to register with a phone number. If you prefer to use an app, there is an app available. It is an interesting note to how quickly this has taken off. As soon as DeepSeek launched, it quickly became the #1 app in the US App Store, already outpacing industry giants like OpenAI's ChatGPT. The really key concepts to know about DeepSeek is there are different models available. There's a general model and a reasoning model. And so the key to being a master is knowing when to use a general model and when to use a reasoning model. One can provide faster responses with low computing needs. Another is more computational and will give a longer response time because the model is thinking first before it answers. And as it's thinking, it's coming up with a logical structure, and it's autonomously developing a logic structure of the steps that must be taken to perform that task. The quick model, general model, it's based on probability prediction. Think of general AI models kind of like a text calculator, where you give it a string of words and it predicts what the next word would be. And in most situations, it can just run off this prediction. General models tend to take a bunch of words and kind of regurgitate it in a different way. But it's not dealing with higher level reasoning and logic. That's where the reasoning model can really stand out. The reasoning model deals with step-by-step reasoning. The general model is programmed by an algorithm in how to make decisions. The reasoning model comes up with its own model based on the problem of what steps it should take to solve that. General models are good for pattern recognition. A reasoning model is generating new ideas and concepts from how it internalizes logic. If you have a very basic, well-defined problem that is known, a general model may have a quick response because the answer is already known. But if you have a complex problem that's unknown, a reasoning model may be the one to dig deeper and to find a new solution. And in both of them, ethical issues will be considered. There are limitations in AI. AI is programmed to behave responsibly in society. As a Chinese developed AI, some of the values that it will seek to uphold: prosperity, freedom, patriotism, democracy, equality, dedication, civility, justice, integrity, harmony, rule of law, friendship. Don't expect the AI to generate harmful content. It's a novice mistake to try to push the boundaries and then get upset when it's not creating content that would be harmful to society. Those are the basics of AI. Now we're going to get into prompt design, how we can interface with it, when to use the fast or the slow interfaces, when to use the general model or the reasoning model, different prompt strategies, prompt design, how to express your needs to AI, the task requirements that you're working with, how to express these needs, and prompt types. So we've already started to get into the differences between the reasoning model and the general model. In the reasoning model, prompts are concise and you tell it the objective. Because in the reasoning model, it internalizes autonomous logic, so you give it an objective and it will figure out how to do that. In the general model, you tell it something to do and you have to tell it step by step how to do that. If you don't specify the steps, it may skip steps, it may generate erroneous results. So there's some more effort on you when you're using a general model. The reasoning model has a great strength of being autonomous. Some principles to think of: model selection, prioritize selection based on the task type rather than what model is popular or the newest. Think about what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's a basic general response is enough to come out quickly and move on, or whether you need a more structured logic process. When you're designing for the reasoning model, give it concise instructions based on the goal and trust the model to internalize the necessary steps. When you're using a general model, you give it strong guidance, so it really all it has to do is just fill in the missing information. Avoid mistakes. In the general model, don't over-trust it. Verify these results. Make sure that the output is factual and reliable. For the reasoning model is going to go logically step by step, so don't rely on assumptions that are shortcuts that may be skipping steps. And one important tip with AI, think about your own biases. Because if you write a prompt using emotionally charged language or written in a way that prejudices the AI towards a particular solution, it's more likely to tell you what you want to hear. Write prompts that are neutral and avoid internal biases. So how do you move from giving instructions to expressing needs? Because the general model is instruction-based, the reasoning model is goal-oriented for the needs. So here's a type of prompt, command-driven. So you're giving steps, and that could be something that you need to do when you want something to execute quickly. That would be like writing a search function or a sort function in code. The advantages are it'll come out with accurate results, but you're limiting the autonomous behavior because it's very directed. Demand-oriented, you're describing a problem background and goals and using the model to plan the solution path. That's very good for the reasoning model. That's perfect for complex problems. So I need to optimize this, analyze it, and give me some options. There's a lot of room for autonomy. That's a good use for the reasoning model. And it simulates the deep reasoning of the AI. But you need to give it your requirements, set some constraints, which transitions into the next mode, blending mode, where you have your requirements and constraints. Plan my vacation, but it must be within this time frame and within this budget. So there's some room for creativity, but it's within the constraints that you are limited to. And then you can also, if you want to really challenge the model in its thinking process, ask it heuristic questions. How and why? When I was making this presentation, and I asked the AI to take the 100 or so slides from Tsinghua University and narrow it down to 35, I noticed it was taking slides out of order, which runs contrary to the way that most people would have approached it. So I then responded to the AI asking it questions of, why did you make those decisions? In the reasoning model, you can see its thought process of what it's thinking before it responds. And as it was structuring it, it then prompted me to think creatively and say, well, why don't we phrase this as a story? And the story that it ordered this in is based on how humans learn. Curiosity, understanding, application, and mastery. What is DeepSeek? How does it work? What can I achieve? How do I master it? We've gone over what it is, and now we're getting more of how it works and how to use it. And so these are ways you're taking your prompt design from just telling it something to do to really thinking about how do I best express these needs and what are some of the ways that it can process that. Some different prompts for different types of tasks. If you have a mathematical proof, which model do you think you'd want to use? General or reasoning? You may be able to get by with a general model because common mathematical proofs are well known and well established, but for mathematics, it's very logical. And for the reasoning model, it's a way to ensure that it goes through the logic step by step. In a general model, it may jump straight to the solution if it's a well-known solution. But by skipping the steps, it may end up with something that's wrong. And as infallible as people think computers are when it comes to mathematics, general AI models have made some very basic mistakes. So a reasoning model can be a better approach. So there are examples here on solving the Pythagorean theorem. With the reasoning model, you could just ask it to prove it and let it come up with those steps. In the general model, you'd have to say, well, derive it in these steps, and then refer to this and refer to that. And so you're kind of giving it more of the steps. For creative writing, reasoning models would focus more on what are the constraints of the genre, and the style, and how to format that, that fits certain confines and expectations. A general model can go wild, so you may give it some constraints to rein in the free play. Say, write this within 200 words, and there is some benefit to open-ended free creation. But for the best outputs, you give it the limits that you are expecting. For code generation, a reasoning model is very great because it's very logical oriented, but a general model could require more refinement steps to clarify the input and output. And for the general model, you give it more of those step-by-step instructions. For multi-round dialogue, there's a tip in here that's very useful. Say you're asking it some questions about the future of AI. Don't ask it an emotional question like, are you afraid of AI? Try to keep your prompts simple and objective. In logical analysis, the reasoning model can deal with complex questions, analyzing the conflicts in society that it's dealing with very difficult issues that it'll assess through its own autonomous logic structure. But then in a general model, if you want to take on this really complex task, the general model would require you to break it into smaller steps, to maybe explain the definition, then compare something, then make an ethical evaluation. And breaking something into multiple steps is a prompt chain, which we may get into later. Just one way of approaching something by having a set of commands that has an output that leads into the next step, that leads into the next step. And as you're doing that, as the information flows from one step to another, you as the user have some control to kind of see if it's on track and avoid it derailing from your intention. So how do you express your needs to AI? In decision-making requirements, you may express it as, this is my goal, here are the options, and here's the evaluation criteria. It's important that you make sure that the AI is evaluating the best option according to what is important to you and what those values are. If you don't specify how you want it to evaluate something, it may come up with a value decision that's not inherently aligned with your cultural values. An example of this is here in America, we have a capitalist healthcare system. And if an AI was telling a hospital how to maximize profit, it might say, cut all vaccinations, don't do any preventative treatment, let people get sick and die, and you'll make the most money that way. But as an ethical society, we have to recognize other values that inherently value human life and equity besides just optimizing for one consideration. Another type of requirement, number two, if you're analyzing requirements, you might express the prompt in terms of, here's a question, here's my data, and here's how I want you to analyze it. And so if you're using a reasoning model, the reasoning model would then internalize a testing process to test this hypothesis, like the scientific method. But if you're using a general model, it would do more surface summary and classification of what you're analyzing. For creative needs, you might want to write a novel. That sort of prompt could be describing, here's a theme, here's a style that I'm targeting, and here's some other sort of innovative direction for the writing. A reasoning model would combine a logical framework to structure the creativity, but a general model would be doing free divergence, guided by examples. Sometimes people look at AI writing as being very generic, and it sort of is, because in a general model it's taking what's been written and kind of coming up with something that sort of fits that style. It can be fast and efficient, but I am hoping we'll move beyond that in newer advances in AI like DeepSeek. For number four, verifying requirements. If you're trying to check for consistency of something, you might have a prompt that says, here's my conclusion, here's a method to verify it, and so you're basically having the AI check for the consistency of that, according to that verification method. The reasoning model would, on its own, come up with a method for verifying and troubleshooting what you're trying to confirm, but the general model would be dealing with more simple confirmations of that. And then finally, number five, if you're executing requirements, you may express a demand in terms of, here's my task, here's the constraints, and here's how I want it to be output. The reasoning model would autonomously optimize those steps and deal with efficiency. A general model doesn't care about the processing efficiency because it just does what you've told it to do. Same five types of requirements are given other examples here. In decision making, to reduce logistics costs, there are two options. There's this option or this option. Compare the cost for return on investment. If you're analyzing, here's an example. Analyze the sales data, and then here is a great tip. In this prompt, they're saying we've attached this spreadsheet. You can upload the documents to DeepSeek, and if there's text in the document, it can parse the text. That's a multimodal prompt because you're dealing with an attachment and you're dealing with text. And then you're asking it to select based on what your parameters are. In creative needs, you want it to design something and it has to meet these requirements, and you list it out, the bullet points. If you're verifying something, you can say, hey, here's the conclusion of my report, and then here's my data. Why don't you verify if my data actually supports my conclusion? In an execution requirement, it's something like convert this code from one language to another, keep the timing of the change, use this format, and output the code with tests. So do you need to learn prompts?
Yeah.
Well, yes. They're how we talk to the AI. Without prompts, AI wouldn't do anything for us and we wouldn't have any way of communicating with it. So you better learn prompts. Some types of prompts, instruction prompts, are telling the AI what to perform. Question and answer prompts are a call and response. Where you expect the AI to answer with certain information. Role-playing prompts can be very useful. If you wanted to simulate a conversation with General Napoleon, you could ask the AI to behave in a role-playing manner. And one really pro tip is that AI can also role play with itself. Imagine that you're doing a writing assignment and you want it to write something in a certain style, but then you want it to critique its own writing. You can actually instruct the AI to behave in multiple personalities. So it'll write an article as a novelist, then critique it as a critic. But then in order to separate this out, you could tell it to put one personality in square brackets. So that way, as the reader, you can differentiate this part of the AI is commenting on this other part of the AI, and then the novelist is instructed to go back and revise its writing based on the critic's comments. And so there's some really deep levels of thinking that you can activate here.
Wow. Creative prompts,
You're guiding the AI to write creatively or generate content. Analytical prompts are analyzing and inferring information with reasoning. And multimodal prompts, as I mentioned earlier, with attaching the spreadsheet, is where you have different kinds of information being synthesized together. Some skills that we can have, there's a lot of us, but these are mostly skills for us to be better users of AI like DeepSeek. Problem reconstruction ability. Can we translate complex, ambiguous problems into structured AI tasks? Creative leadership skills. Designing prompts to inspire the AI to think creatively. This user's guide from Tsinghua University, and this is just an abridged version. If you want to go into further depth, there's a lot here. There's a lot of academic concepts about how we as humans think creatively and how to apply that thought process from our understanding of human psychology into how to inspire innovative solutions from AI. So I highly recommend going into it. I've been looking at it a few days, and there's a lot to unpack and learn. Result optimization capability. Can we analyze AI output to identify the areas for improvement, or to optimize the output quality by going over and over to figure out better and better prompts to get the outputs that we need? Cross-domain integration capabilities. That's where AI has incredible creative applications for taking what we know about one industry and applying it to another industry and finding that bridge in what connects these unrelated fields, and through that enhance our learning. And wow, that's really where we get into innovation. Systems thinking. Can we design multi-step, multi-dimensional prompt systems? Build, even if this is something you're using a lot, you may want to keep a document on your computer where you can save prompt templates, where then the next time you want to do a similar task, you can just fill in the blanks. That's one way that we can build our skills and plan for reuse as we deal with similar problems in the future. Real-world applications. Now, there's a lot of real-world applications in the original document. I'm only going to pick a few. Some of them are specific if you're in business or marketing, or some of them I've put into use with Chinese social media, which I'm a fan of. And some of the applications that are going to be used here, we're going to show some examples of AI marketing, Chinese social media, WeChat, Weibo, TikTok, using DeepSeek for generating brand storytelling for marketing, creative concepts, communicating and implementing business plans. So one example is in a business, if you're marketing something, you want to know the communication of your brand and your target audience, and how to summarize the advantages of your product into a memorable marketing campaign. In the presentation, they give an example of a prompt here. It's very long, but it's detailed, kind of going step by step, how to define the functions of your product, the values, your target audience, and the advantages of your product. There are many more examples like this. This is one of the things you can go further into the full user's guide by Tsinghua University. But one thing I was drawn to is WeChat, because I use WeChat. If you're not familiar with WeChat, WeChat's like the top social network in China. It's used as a messaging platform, but it's also used as a payment system. Most Chinese have moved beyond cash, beyond credit cards, to where they'll just scan their phones and use this network to share money. It's the everything app that Elon Musk wishes he had invented. It's incredibly powerful. And in this case, for WeChat marketing, if you have a marketing account and you want to use AI to suggest topics for your brand, there's an example of a prompt where you fill in the blanks. Here's the details about my account. Here's my target readers. Here's what my readers need. And based on that and my brand positioning, generate 10 topics, and each topic needs to include this, this, and this, and then consider the balance between the durability of the content and the timeliness of the content. If it's like if you're doing something that's trendy based on what's going viral, or something that'll last a long time. And then when it comes to TikTok, hey, you're probably going to see, if you're watching this, maybe you're watching this on TikTok. I've learned a lot that this guy presents a key understanding of what makes compelling TikTok content. It's got to have an eye-catching opening, so you don't skip past it. It's got to have an emotional core, because you remember things better if there's an emotional connection. Whether you're happy or whether you're angry or whether you're sad, it's got to have a compact plot, so it fits for people who only have a few minutes to watch something. And then it's got to have an ending that encourages engagement. So these best practices are informed by people who have used the network, who have studied it, and who know what makes good content for the platform. If you inform the AI into how to create content for these key strengths, it can then take your script and express it in a way that has an eye-opening prompt, and you focus on something emotional, compact your story, and give a call to action that encourages engagement, because things that people engage with will be promoted by the algorithm. If you're watching this on TikTok, I suggest you give it a heart, because if you want to copy these slides, I'll be posting the slides separately. So in order to get them, give it a like, save the video, or follow my account so you can find where I post the slides. Another example about marketing is your brand positioning. You want to use AI to help express how your brand stands against competitors. What is the emotional connection with your brand? How can you communicate that in visual identity? There is a very detailed template from the presentation that gives you useful applications like that. I've really loved going through this user's guide to learn about how creativity works and how creativity can be applied to bring out innovative thinking in an AI model like DeepSeek. Designing prompts to inspire innovative thinking. Design an innovative marketing concept for this brand and this product, and then here are the requirements. We want core creativity to combine this brand with an unrelated field. Number two, based on the brand's values of what your brand identity is, explore how those connections will come back to those brand values. Again, it's programming. If you want your marketing to be memorable, you need an emotional core. So you're telling it these are the emotional needs. So you want to create something with emotional resonance, and something that's dealing with what's trending or what's going viral. And so it could be a powerful tool if you're doing this sort of marketing. When it comes to thinking of ways to kind of challenge our own assumptions, there is an extreme what-if strategy. So some things that many people have accepted, and whether they're true or not, they're assumptions. School is the main place of learning. Teachers are the main disseminators of knowledge. Learning requires long-term effort, and exams are the way to evaluate mastery. Well, those might be true to an extent, but what the extreme what-if strategy is, if you want to really challenge this sort of thinking, give it a prompt that lists these assumptions, generates extreme versions of those assumptions, and then build hypothetical scenarios where you push those extreme assumptions to their limits, and then use AI's analysis to explore the impact of that situation. And through this process, it can challenge our preconceived assumptions and find out where that holds up and where it doesn't. In a business, you could also use DeepSeek for creating an action plan. This slide has a very detailed template, giving a format of, I want this executive summary, I want this project team within 300 words, I want the milestones, listing five to seven key milestone events, and then boom, boom, boom. All of these are key project management deliverables that can be given to take your plan and then write it out in a format that you can then execute from. If you want to go to be the real top-level innovative user, which I know you can be, these are some of the advanced strategies for AI-assisted knowledge generation, knowledge awakening, how to collaborate between humans and machines, different levels of AI usage, how to be not a prompt writer, a prompt engineer, using prompt frameworks, and probability interaction. So for the advanced uses of AI, we're dealing with knowledge awakening. That's things like AI-assisted brainstorming, where your AI is listing concepts, asking questions, stimulating thinking, and using AI to expand thinking dimensions. Then we'll take that to knowledge integration, AI-assisted correlation analysis. AI helps establish knowledge associations, discovers knowledge application scenarios, and forms semantic views. And the higher level, in our prompt construction, we are working on creating structured prompts, integrating the key information, building a clear structure, and dealing with specific constraints. What is knowledge? Knowledge is the accumulation of our experience. So why does it need to awaken? Because knowledge exists, but it needs to be used. Experience exists, but it needs to be used effectively. Insights exist, but they need to be expressed. So the cognitive subject, human experience, is then expanded out into a knowledge system, and then with the outermost layer of AI assistant, we have layers to access that knowledge system. Knowledge is the accumulation of experience, like sedimentary layers, and it's awakened through cognitive activation, ways to break the inherent thinking mode. If you want to have innovative use of AI and innovative solutions, you need to approach problems from different angles. Unconventional. Sometimes you can use AI to approach a problem in reverse, to come up with a different way of looking at something. Experience mapping connects these scenarios and then creatively reorganizes them. So the triple role of AI assistants: cognitive catalyst, knowledge connector, and innovation booster. Some of the capabilities, we're dealing with AI thinking, understanding AI decision logic so we can think about how the algorithm is going to behave for our problems. Data insight, collaborative awareness of the human to machine interface, integrating across domains, taking knowledge from unrelated subjects, finding the correlations, working creatively with it, and then in guidance, that's how we guide the AI through prompt engineering, designing efficient instructions, decomposing tasks into the necessary steps. And ultimately, as a power user, we need to apply our judgment in verifying the authenticity of the results provided and assessing according to our values and the values that we want to see in society. AI thinking, that we can be thinking in terms of AI, building our own template library of useful prompts that we can work from again and again. Having an innovative workflow where we're dealing with the feedback as we use it, we're tuning. How can we give better responses, and we're telling AI how it can give us better results. Use the thumbs up and thumbs down to give it feedback, but then go beyond that and give yourself feedback in how you can learn to be a better prompt writer and a prompt engineer. Deeply integrated thinking, applying cross-domain knowledge, integrating AI's knowledge with your own professional knowledge. And that's where you can really challenge yourself to get to an innovative level and apply that into your business and into your everyday life. Building personal characteristics, focus on creating the tools that work for you and may be difficult to replicate. It's a pyramid. If you're a basic user, you might be starting out with a task, getting a simple prompt, giving it a simple prompt and getting passive results. As you become better, you'll be combining tasks in interesting ways, structuring your prompts logically, and actively optimizing your results. And to be the top innovative user, which I know you can be, it's about prompts as not just asking these things, but actually engineering how you write the prompts. So the words in the prompt are a work of art, and the results are creative applications that innovate your work. Set clear goals and context. Activate the thinking patterns that you want the AI to be using, whether it's critical thinking or creative thinking, or whether you let the model select that. Breaking down complex prompts or complex tasks step by step, so one prompt flows into the other and flows into the other, and you guide the process along the way through the different steps of the problem you're solving. Guide in-depth reasoning and thinking. Give it the necessary reference materials and external resources. One difference between OpenAI's ChatGPT and DeepSeek is that OpenAI is a very general model. It has a very broad knowledge. It might have an encyclopedic knowledge of everything on the internet. DeepSeek is more focused. It's focused on core data, which may be more academic in nature. It may have more Chinese data that it's based on. So if there's some resources that are missing, you may upload that or give it the additional context it needs for your specific problems. And then work on feedback and iterative optimization. It's a common mistake for beginners to think that I've given it something complex and didn't do it right. Well, sometimes you've got to work in steps. You go through multiple rounds of prompts and questioning, kind of hone in on the results and the behavior that you're optimizing for. There's a lot more acronyms in the original version. Here's a few acronyms. It gives taste, task, audience, structure, tone, and example. How does this work? Task, write a blog post. Audience, general users. Structure, it has to tell a story, beginning, middle, and end. Tone, friendly, accessible. And example, something like the New York Times tech column. Align framework. Aim, level, input, guidelines, and novelty. And an example of this is to create an article. The level has to be for high school students. The input is this background on the current environmental issues. The guidelines are, I want clear and concise language. And novelty is to deal with the latest environmental data and novel ideas and solutions. One thing I like about this is I notice how the audience, the reading level is specified. It wants to be at a high school level. I've used DeepSeek to help me with writing social media posts for Chinese social media. I love China. I've studied Chinese. I've lived in China for about a fifth of my life. But my Chinese is not perfect. I am about HSK level 3. So I know the level of my Chinese, and when I'm working with that, I can ask DeepSeek to help rephrase something to the level that I'm familiar with, because DeepSeek is very powerful. It can write fluent translations at a native level, but I'd like to be able to understand what I'm writing myself. And so knowing that, I've been able to have it target a specific reading level, and then when I'm doing something that's bilingual, as the Chinese is being simplified, I can have it also simplify the English down to the same level so that English and Chinese will match. And then I will use this as a learning technique myself to then delete the Chinese translation, retranslate it from my own ways that I would say things, and then give that back to the AI to ask DeepSeek to guide me as a tutor in how to improve my Chinese. And so hopefully that will be something, be a process to take my Chinese to the next level. And I think it's working so far. Back to this pyramid design. At a very basic level, if you're using a general model, it's dealing with a lot of general probability of what is the most probable solution for something. And sometimes when you have a problem like AI hallucinating responses, that can be because it's using probability. It doesn't have enough information, so it's giving what it thinks is a probable answer. You may want to think about ways to rein that in and avoid that, like telling the AI to be more expressive when it doesn't know something. Or a pro tip is DeepSeek has a search feature built in, so you can tell it to search and check results from the internet. You can also tell it to cite sources as a way to avoid this sort of hallucination probability issue. So at a very basic level, it's generating preliminary content through probabilistic prediction and reasoning of large models. As we get better, we're doing interactive screening. So we need to be interacting with the AI and selecting better works through dialogue and selection how we write our prompts and how we look objectively at the outputs. And at a higher level, we're being more active in optimizing that by personalizing and optimizing the generalized content based on our own abilities and creativity. There was a lot here. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you got anything out of this, please like this, follow me to get the slides, to go over them again at your own pace, and then search online for Tsinghua University's DeepSeek User Guide, because there is some powerful stuff here to take your understanding of AI to the next level. Any questions?
How do you go around the Chinese part of it if you don't speak or read
It's in English. You can use it perfectly in English. And actually, the thing that AI has an incredible ability to do translation, because it has this really deep understanding of language. It used to be, when we were using things like Google Translate, that it is a very surface level translation, like a dictionary to look up these words and translate from these words to these words. AI translation actually works at a deeper understanding of the core concepts, and then from those concepts, you're not translating word for word, you're translating idea for idea. So AI translation is incredible. I have a friend in Wuhan who's a professional translator, and he started looking at AI and was like, "This is terrifying. There will be no translators. There will be no work for me, because it's going to make all interpretation obsolete." Maybe not yet, but it has great capabilities there. So everything you can do in English.